Mark, let's start with the FA Youth Cup. Brilliant effort from the lads to take Forest all the way. And as we know, when you get to penalty kicks, it becomes a little bit of a lottery at that stage. So, yeah, just a great night.
Yeah, real credit to Tom Pell and Jimmy Unwin and everyone that works with those players. I thought the boys were excellent last night and should have won the game. I thought they were a better team. I thought we played some good football, some good chances, and a really disappointing way to go out in a game when we probably had the best of it and we're a better team. So yeah, frustrating for them in that sense, but they've had some good experiences along the way. They've played really well, and yeah, we're really proud of them and think that the level that they've hit has been very good. So yeah, really exciting to see nearly 1,000 people there last night. I spent some time after the game with Josh Coulson and Harry Darling, some of the ex-scholars that I used to coach at the game, quite a lot of the first team boys at the game, nearly 1,000 supporters at the game or people in the stadium. It was just a really good night and good when you get everybody back together and you realise the connections that people build with the club over the years through the academy. So those boys will do the same. They'll be disappointed from last night, but it's a good experience for them as part of their development, but they'll learn from. And as I say, yeah, disappointing that the cup runs over because they were so good, but at the same time, another good experience for them.
Yeah, and you talk about some of those names from previous seasons. It's actually amazing the past couple of years. You look at the almost direct production line you've got going at the moment with Ben Warman through to Lewis Simper, Tom Dickens, Kai Yearn this season. To actually have done that over just a couple of years is brilliant.
Yeah, and the plan for us is to firstly continue doing that. So year on year, there are players that are developing through there, and fundamentally that those players are securing genuine positions in the team and in the first team squad where they're contributing to wins and a team that wins, because that is in the end what we have to try and do. So that's the challenge for all of them to continue, whether they're in and around the squad now or a few years away or just breaking into around the squad. But it's exciting because we know we've got some talented players and they do some excellent work in the academy that is been going on a long time. You know, there's years of work that doesn't get seen before you start to see a player who's doing quite well. So yeah, for us, we have to continue that work and continue improving it, just like every area of the club that we're working hard to improve at the moment. And there's some good signs there.
Yeah, by the very necessity of it, really. If you win a promotion, then it has to pull everybody else with it in the youth setup, because suddenly, for better or worse, for the players wanting to break into the team, they're having to break into that higher level. Absolutely,
yeah. The bar raises all the time, and then you get promotion, and then you think, right, well, how do we get better again? And you're constantly trying to improve, which pushes the standard and the level players have to get to. You know, it wasn't so long ago we were in the National League, and the level that, and it wasn't so long ago we were struggling in the National League, and therefore that was probably the season when the most academy players played in the team. But I guess by definition that is understandable. And then year on year, as the level goes up and the demand gets harder and higher, it's tougher to try and break through. So yeah, we can never say it's a bad thing to keep improving, but it just means that we've all got to keep moving forwards quickly, and everybody's got to keep up with it, because that is the nature of it.
Let's look ahead to Burton then. I think you always felt this would be a tough couple of weeks off the back of the January transfer window with the players coming back from injury. Clearly not helped with Jack Iredale picking up his injury as well. However, if you get to the end of this week and you can beat Burton this weekend, presumably that sets you up pretty well, really, for having a week without the Tuesday night game.
Yeah, I hope a blank week next week helps the players. We've become very reliant on the same group of players because there's not been too many options in the squad in recent weeks. And a couple of injuries have obviously been costly for us in January. You know, any team that loses really integral players is going to challenge you all the time. So we know that, but we have to just adjust and deal with that as best we can. I've always thought this fortnight would be a really challenging one because of that. But, you know, this will be our 12th game in 40 days on Saturday. And that is an incredible number that we're constantly asking the same players to really go to it with. And I think, you know, every year you get from Christmas to probably the end of February until the weather starts turning again and the pitches start to improve and the end's in sight and things like that. This is the grind of the season. And we had an outstanding January. And now we're looking to try and keep the form going as best we can. You know, in the last 10 league games, we've won 4, drawn 2 and lost 4. Now, if we did that again in the next 10, we'd be fairly satisfied with that. And we're probably a point ahead of where we want to be at the moment. So you can always look at games and think, oh, we should have done better, or we might have won that one. And games like the Gillingham game feel like a right kick in the Watsits, because you play okay, you're fairly competitive in the game, and you lose the game late on like we did. It becomes really frustrating in that sense. But you know, we had a lot of the ball in that game and probably didn't do quite enough to create enough chances, but we had a couple of good ones. We ended up losing the game late on, but we went to Lincoln, got peppered in the first half. We ended up winning that game late on. So you can't choose how it happens. It's just how a season rolls out. And over the course of 30 games, we put ourselves in an excellent position. A lot of clubs in our league would swap positions with us right now. And we're not the only club that's finding it tough in the middle of February because of the number of games that we've played or injuries in the squad. Everybody goes through it. It's just about sticking at it and grinding it out and trying to get a few more points along the way. So we've got things we can improve. We've got to go to Burton, which is a really physical game, I think, the way they play. And we've got to try and get something from it.
Yeah, with Burton, obviously you beat them earlier in the season. They seem to have had a fair bit of movement during the January window. What have they changed around?
A lot of players, really. A few senior ones have moved on. They had a massive squad, and I think they've had to try and trim that a little bit, and they've added a little bit too. They're playing a different formation from when we last played them. They were a back 4 earlier in the season. They're back 3 now. Had a couple of disappointing results, but in the main, they'll be delighted with where they are, similar to us. I mean, I think we're pretty much level where we are in the table at the moment. And you look at the middle of the table and you say, ourselves, Burton, Accrington, Portsmouth, we're all in a really similar spot right now. And over the next 2 games, we play Burton and Accrington, which gives us a great opportunity to see if we can wrestle around with them in the middle of the table. That's got to be our intention, to try and come out of that with a good points return and see if we can stick around the positions that we are. So I think it's great that we're in that situation. I think it's great that we're competing with a Burton who, I guess for us, are a similar model in the sense that smaller clubs, smaller resources, and have shown an ability to be competitive in the top half of the table quite regularly. And when Jimmy and Dino put a team on the pitch, you know what you're going to get in terms of work ethic and aggression and power and athleticism. And they'll make you defend, they'll get the ball into forward areas, they'll be strong on set plays. So there'll be some similarities to the game on Tuesday at Gillingham. It might not be a beautiful game to watch, a bit like Tuesday was, but we've got to go one better and make sure we come out with something.
Yeah, and with the additional training time for next week, I know you mentioned on Tuesday night that for some of the players that will just be a case of actually taking a break and not doing too much at all. For others, I guess someone like Laurent Talage, you mentioned that you want to get him into a position where he's properly ready for senior football. What does that actually involve on the training ground? What is that you will specifically aim to do?
Yeah, I think from the training ground point of view, it's just the ability to be able to work and get some really good physical work in, and some technical bits about how he plays with his back to goal and certain things we want from him in that position. The reality is, when you take players that are on their first loan, the only reason or only way that they can improve and develop and get used to it is by playing games. But it's the vicious circle of they haven't played many, so they're not ready. And sometimes he's going to struggle with it and find it difficult. And we have to try and help him and support him and keep confidence with him in that period of time to try and, what you know all the time is the players will get better. That is always going to be the case, and he will do. He found it tough, I think, when he came on Tuesday, and we probably didn't get the impact from him that we hoped. But we know that with games and with that bit of experience as he goes, he'll improve and give us a little bit more of what we've got. And while we are where we are, we've got to keep pushing to get as much out of everybody as we can when we play. And next week will be some important time to train a little bit, just to be honest, just to train a couple of sessions, because we've hardly done that with the number of games that we've had. But certainly a number of the boys will be glad of a few days of not having to kick each other and sprint around the football pitch, because it's been a pretty relentless schedule since the start of January. I don't know if anyone's played as many games as us since the turn of the year. I'm not sure there'll be many teams that have played more games than us, certainly. And I think there's only 5 in the whole of the 92 clubs that have won more games than us in all competitions. So from a relentless schedule, we've done terrific, and we have to try and keep doing that now.
And just to finish, any positive news on Jack Iredale? Any news there?
Not really. He's gone to London today to see a specialist to follow up from his scan. But it's going to be a bit of time. I mean, we've got 11 weeks left of the season, and he'll probably be missing for more weeks than he's available for.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
Yeah, big. I mean, I think when you look at the FA Cup team that we played, I think there was 2 players missing from that team at Newcastle to Luton. It was Jack Iredale and Joe Ironside. Now, I think there's a lot of teams in the league that would miss those players because they're fundamental to how we played, and they've been 2 of our top performers this season. So certainly you can't hide away from the fact that we can be a better team when they're available. But there's not a lot we can do about it. We can cry about it and moan about it if we want, but it won't actually help. So we are where we are. We've got what we've got, and we've got a complete belief in the players that we've got that they can contribute to winning performances. So I don't think there's any drama there. We've got to try and get a positive result on Saturday, and then a little break before the next run of games will hopefully serve us well, so that everybody that is fit and is playing can really contribute to the team. And hopefully Lloyd's not too far away from returning to the team as well, which will cover us in that position. But certainly we're being very demanding this month, or the month just gone, of the same players. So every time you lose one and you become a little bit lighter, it of course stresses you out a little bit. And Jack's been a big player for us, so we'll miss him, but I'm sure he can get himself back, and we can see him again at some point later in the season.
And in terms of Saturday as well, are any of the players who are currently out injured, are you considering being able to play them or put them on the bench at all, or not yet?
Potentially the squad, yeah, but certainly not the starting team. I don't think anyone's quite up to that level, that speed yet. So we'll see where we are tomorrow and today once we get everybody in and decide which is the best way to go with the 18. But we don't expect to see anybody start in the game that hasn't been recently, because they're not quite ready for that yet.
Could I ask which players might be on the bench on Saturday?
Any of the ones that have been injured and haven't been part of it recently.
No worries. Cheers, Mark.
Pleasure. Come on, Mark Taylor.
Well, I was thinking about one, but I didn't know if you were to answer it or not. In terms of, say, last night, and then Lewis, Mamadou, players like that, how difficult is it to make that progression from being like almost like where Ben Warman is now, whereby you're playing well at a decent level, but then to push into the first team? How difficult is that?
You're right, I don't want to answer it. Yeah, I think it's really difficult because the jump is big, and regardless of whether they're just training with us or playing in the 18s or playing in reserve football or out on loan, the level that they're out on loan is a jump to our level. So that is a really tough transition to make. But I don't think it's something that we've always found quite difficult to bridge that gap. But I don't think that's an exclusive to Cambridge United issue. I think across football, you see that as a really difficult transition. And I guess the reality is you've got to go from being a young player who's got some potential to being one who trains every day with the first team and is good in training and copes, then becomes a squad, like makes up numbers in squads and gets the odd minutes here and there, then becomes someone that is relied upon, but a squad player, but can go in the team. This is probably where Ben Warman is now, completely part of the squad, relied upon, knows he can contribute. We know he can help us win. He can play in a number of positions, but he's not yet one of the regular first name on the team sheet in the starting 11. And that's the next stage all the time that players are trying to get towards. So disappointingly often for the players, that is a longer process than they ever want it to be. But that's life. It's hard, and it's not for everyone, football, because it demands that you have to keep going all the time. And there's more bad days than good, and it's quite a disappointing industry sometimes because you don't always get your own way and it doesn't go how you want it to. But that's where that grit and resilience becomes really important. And the programme that we give the players is really important. I think across football, young players really suffered last year in the 18 months because the lack of football that they played will have hindered people's progress in that period of time. But hopefully we're getting that back on track now. So we've always got that fine act between, right, Mamadou and Simps, could they be with us more often? We'd like that. We'd like to see more of them. But in doing that, they don't play as many games, and therefore they need that right now, especially off the back of last year. So we're quite pleased with where everybody's progress is at the moment, but that next step of being relied upon to be regular starters in our team, they're not quite there yet. So the challenge for them is to keep going and keep improving and show that they can do it, whether that is between now and the end of the season or in pre-season. Those opportunities will be there, and unfortunately, you might not get that many of those opportunities. And when it comes, and you never know when it is, you've got to be ready to take it. So that's why the pressure is on them always to be at the top of their game and really focused and ready.
I guess because there's not many markers that you can put down for it, is it? It's really subjective and a gut instinct from yourselves.
In terms of whether they're ready to go in the team?
Yeah, whether they're ready to come in or be part of the squad on a full-time basis.
Yeah, I guess a lot of football's subjective, but we deal with more data and analysis than ever before. So there is certain metrics that we can look at as to whether people fit how we want them to play or athletically are able to do what we need them to be able to do and things like that. But at the same time, fairly often the young player's opportunity comes about through necessity because of an injury or because of like a suspension, and you have to go in and be thrown in, and you might not be prepared. You know, I was speaking to Harry Darling last night. He went on loan to Royston, got dropped from the team, didn't get in their team on the Saturday. Somebody got injured, and he got called back on the Monday and played on the Tuesday, and that was his first game. And that is life in a nutshell as a lone player sometimes. You don't know when your chances come in. You feel like it's the worst day in the world on the Saturday in the non-league team, you're not getting in, and then all of a sudden you're in and you better be good. And that's the difficulty of it sometimes. We'd love it to be really linear, really simple, and really by design all the time, that actually at this time, this player will go in the team, but it just doesn't work like that. So sometimes you can try and design it like that, and hopefully it works sometimes, but more often than not, it's be ready, because you never know when it's coming.
And I guess the form of the person whose place you're trying to take you're dependent on that as well.
Yeah, 100%. And then also, you know that you might go in for a couple of games, do really well, and then still come out of the team. And that's never happened to you before. You usually play every minute of every game because you're the best player in your age group from the age 7 all the way up. And all of a sudden things start to change. You become the bottom of a ladder rather than always at the top of one. And dealing with that is a different change all the time. And quite often young players need to go in and out all the time and learn off of those players around them, which is why the importance of your senior players and having really consistent performers in your team are so important, and you've got good leaders in it. Otherwise, it becomes an even harder challenge for the young players to go in.
That's great. Thanks, Matt. I could ask you more and more, but I probably better let you go.
Top man, no worries.